Hello everyone. Welcome back to Secrets Behind the Stars. I'm so glad you made it here again. Before we begin, don't forget to like this video, subscribe, and hit the join button to support the channel as we bring you real, raw, and unforgettable stories from the heart of Turkish show business. Tonight's story isn't about trophies or headlines. It's about a pause in the air, a message carried on a whisper, and a reaction that didn't need words to be felt. It's about Mahassine, who stepped on stage and turned an awards night into a confession, and about Cenk, whose quiet presence became the loudest truth in the room. This was meant to be a carefree celebration: glittering lights, a red carpet that looked like molten velvet, gowns like constellations drifting past flashes of cameras. Everyone came ready to applaud, to clap, to toast. No one imagined that the moment people would remember wouldn't be the announcement of winners, but the hush that followed a simple, unguarded speech. When Mahassine arrived, the energy shifted. She didn't announce herself with diamonds or drama. She wore a white gown, clean and understated, the kind of white that doesn't blind but glows, like a candle you can't help staring at. There was a calm to her, a stillness that felt intentional. No layers of glitter, no grand gestures. Just poise. Just breath. Across the room, seated without fanfare, was Cenk. He had arrived early, sliding into the hall while others were still lingering on the carpet. In a dark suit cut close to his frame and the soft silver at his temples catching the light, he didn't behave like someone looking for attention. He behaved like someone witnessing something important, hands folded, shoulders steady, eyes alert. For months, their connection had lived between lines and glances, more rumor than announcement, more feeling than definition. They were spoken about in the way the sea is described by people looking out from shore. Beautiful, distant, pulling and retreating in the same motion. They hadn't posed together. They hadn't placed themselves in each other's cameras. Yet the space between them felt charged, like a live wire hidden under velvet. Every time a lens found her, you could feel another lens searching for him. Every time she turned, a murmur rippled, as if the room itself had become a human heart learning how to beat around a question. Then came the moment. When Mahassine's name was called, the applause rose and settled almost instantly, as if clapping was too small for what the room sensed was about to unfold. She walked to the stage without a note in her hand, no pre-written speech folded into her palm, no phone glowing with saved lines. She reached for the microphone like it was something delicate that deserved kindness, not a prop to be wrestled. Her first words were quiet, but the kind of quiet that made people lean in. She didn't thank sponsors. She didn't list accomplishments. She spoke like someone finally letting a truth stretch its legs. She talked about falling and getting back up, about the humiliation of losing the courage you pretend to have, and the relief of realizing you don't have to be brave alone. She talked about work that takes more than talent, about days that bowl you over with doubt, and about the kind of presence that doesn't fix anything, but somehow makes everything possible. Then her voice found its spine, and the room went still in the way churches go still before a hymn. She said there are people who hold a mirror to you when you can't bear to look at yourself. People whose quiet is not emptiness but shelter. People who teach you that love doesn't always perform, doesn't always shout, doesn't always explain. Sometimes it just stays. Sometimes it stands at the back of the room and waits for you to look up. She didn't name anyone. She didn't need to. The cameras turned, instinctively, like sunflowers following light, and found Cenk. He sat unmoving, fingers interlaced as if holding himself together, his eyes glossy but steady. He didn't smile. He didn't frown. He looked like someone who had been handed a truth so gentle he was afraid to break it by breathing too hard. And in that stillness, the room understood what had been hovering for months without landing. There was a bond between them that didn't ask permission to exist. You could feel the audience inhale all at once. It wasn't gossip anymore, it was something quieter, something that made you want to lower your voice. People live for spectacle, but they remember sincerity. What Mahassine gave them wasn't a performance. It was a glimpse behind the curtain, where the person is more visible than the star. After the applause returned, soft first, then gathering like rain, she thanked the team that had held her through a heavy year, the colleagues who believed in her craft, the mentors who stood firm when the ground didn't. But the emotion didn't leave her. It sat in her eyes, burning without spilling, and when she stepped back from the microphone, the room stood. Not everyone rises for an award. They rose for the feeling. Back at his table, Cenk didn't rush to stand. He rose as if the moment had to finish breathing before he could move. He pressed his hands together, almost like a prayer, and though he didn't clap more loudly than anyone else, the attention gravitated toward him anyway. He had been a mystery for weeks, a question mark that men and women of all ages couldn't stop tracing. Tonight, he wasn't a question. He was the answer she had spoken without speaking. What the cameras didn't show was everything you would want to know next. After the stage lights bled into the next announcement, after the room tried to return to its design of glitter and applause, there was a beat where the reality of what had happened settled. Mahassine walked backstage with a small entourage that looked proud but protective. She held the award like a token she hadn't expected to matter this much. And there, in a corridor that smelled faintly of flowers and fresh paint, she paused. A message came through. A smile almost formed and then didn't. She took one deep breath. Cenk didn't run to her. That's not how this story goes. He waited in a shadowed corner near the service doors, giving space to the world that wanted a piece of her. They didn't touch. They didn't pose. What they shared was a look that belonged to them and to no one else. She moved closer. He nodded once, barely, the sort of nod you give when words would be too heavy. She whispered something, and if you read lips you might guess it was thank you, but in truth it could have been any two words they had promised each other when they were both tired and the night felt longer than their patience. There was a car waiting for her. There was a different car waiting for him. Everyone in the building had a job to do, security to guide, stylists to shield, managers to negotiate, but none of that explained why this tiny exchange felt like a vow. No rings, no declarations, just a promise made in the language of people who understand that some feelings prefer the quiet. By the time the event finished, the internet had already crowned the moment of the night. A clip of her speech spread like a secret across group chats and timelines. Screenshots of Cenk's face, backlit and reflective, were posted with captions like "I felt that, and this is what support looks like." Some were skeptical, because skepticism is a habit that wears the costume of wisdom. Others were moved, because sometimes you have to recognize grace when you see it. Morning brought headlines, each one more certain than the last about what had or hadn't been said. But the posts that mattered most were the ones that didn't try too hard. A monochrome photograph appeared on his account, no location, no tag, a hallway light spilling onto a floor. The caption was 4 words long and said enough, no need to say. On her page, hours later, a single sentence: "There are voices you hear without sound." Neither tag. Neither answer questions. The story grew anyway. People close to them, makeup artists with gentle hands, a driver who has learned which roads are kinder, a publicist who knows how to keep noise outside the door, kept quiet in the way professionals do when they respect the people they work for. Still, a few small truths leaked through the cracks. That the week before, when rehearsals bled into exhaustion, she had almost chosen not to attend. That he had called, late, voice tired but steady, and told her to go, to collect what she had earned, to remember that fear has a way of lying to you. That in the days leading up to the ceremony, they had kept their distance, not out of coldness but out of consideration for a night that wasn't designed for drama but for celebration. And what was that celebration, really, if not a recognition that people grow, and that growth doesn't always look pretty? The roles she had carried, the arcs she made believable, the quiet charisma that had turned into something larger, these were the reasons for the invitation and the applause. But her gratitude that night wasn't merely professional. She was thanking the person who had held a space for her when her confidence felt like a candle in a draft. Some viewers argued that everything was symbolic, that nothing was literal. Others insisted that we had all witnessed a declaration without a name. Maybe both were right. Maybe that's the point. Some loves do not require definition to be understood. You know them the way you know when a song is right for the moment. You feel it before you find the words. Later that week, in a studio where the lights were kinder and the questions softer, she was asked if her words had been for someone specific. She smiled, quiet, with the patience of someone who has learned how to protect the parts of herself that can't be replaced. She said thank you to the audience for their kindness. She said the speech was about gratitude, about the people who make you braver than you are by yourself. She said that everyone deserves someone who stands for them, not in front of them. The interviewer tried to ask again, but she just kept smiling. You could read 1,000 meanings into that smile. You would be wrong about half of them and still be moved. Cenk stayed as he has always been in such moments, steady as a coastline. He showed up where he was supposed to, worked with his usual discipline, and resisted the gravity of someone else's story pulling him into commentary. He didn't deny. He didn't confirm. He let the world talk and kept his silence, and somehow that silence felt like a hand placed gently in the small of her back, guiding her through a crowded room. This is the thing about nights like that, you think you're there for the show, for the gowns and speeches and perfectly timed jokes, but you leave thinking about the people you love and the ones who stand for you when you have forgotten how to stand for yourself. You leave thinking about the stillness of a man in the audience and the courage of a woman with a microphone, and how they met somewhere in the middle, without breaking the room in half. Maybe they'll never tell us what we want to know. Maybe they don't owe us that. Maybe all we get, maybe all we need, is the memory of a simple white dress, a calm smile, a voice that trembled before it steadied, and eyes in the dark that glistened without falling. Maybe it's enough to know that on a night built for noise, two people chose to let the quiet speak. And that's what made it unforgettable. Not scandal, not spectacle, just the rare grace of honesty delivered carefully, received tenderly, and allowed to be what it was, a moment people will replay not to decode, but to feel. A moment that reminded everyone watching that success is sweetest when someone who knows your whole story is sitting somewhere not far away, saying nothing, and meaning everything. You were there with me. You saw it. You felt it. And if you missed it, you know now why it mattered. Thank you for spending your time with Secrets Behind the Stars tonight. Stay close, keep your heart open, and I'll bring you more stories where the truth shines through the gloss. Until then, take care of your quiet, because that's where love does its best work.